Hi, and welcome to this session brought to you by Digital Workforce. My name is Mika Vainio-Mattila. I'm a partner and co-founder at Digital Workforce. And the topic of our conversation today is going to be around the evolution of the digital worker, both in terms of the skills and the capabilities that the digital worker delivers, but also in terms of modern on-demand deployment models in order to deploy and manage digital workers more efficiently. Joining me for the conversation today, I have two esteemed colleagues from Digital Workforce. First one on my right-hand side here is Mr. Tuomo Sievilä. Tuomo is leading our continuous services business, delivering such innovative services as RoboShore. We'll talk more about that later. Tuomo joined us from Nordea Bank in 2017, where he was leading the first initial stages of the RPA program in the largest bank in the Nordics. Welcome, Tuomo.
Great to be here. Thank you, Mika.
And our other colleague joining us today is Karli Kalpala. Karli is recently started to lead a new mission in our company, namely around designing and bringing to the market new innovative services in the area of intelligent automation. And in his previous role, Karli was leading our global professional services organization. Welcome, Karli.
Thank you, Mika.
So, gentlemen, let's start from the beginning. Let's start with the evolution of RPA and customer expectations as well, how those have evolved over the time. And in fact, let's engage in a small time travel to get the session started. So, rewinding the clock about 5 or 6 years, going back to the day when RPA was still young. A lot of things have changed since then in terms of how we view RPA, how we utilize it, how we measure it, and so on and so forth. But fundamentally, if I'm correct, RPA is still the same as a fundamental concept. It's a non-invasive technology for automation, for being able to execute processes in a manner that doesn't require human participation, and in a manner that doesn't require us to change the underlying IT systems. So, Karli, you've been working with very advanced customers and mature customers over the years, for many years. What is your view on this evolution? And what would you say customers are expecting today in terms of automation solutions and services?
Thank you, Mika, for the question. Very good question indeed. And I think kind of the big story has been this non-invasive, rule-based automation of the tedious and mundane tasks of employees and tasks that are performed in general. And I think kind of what we see our customers discussing now, and the market is kind of converging to, there is two major trends going on. There's something new capabilities that allows non-rule-based automations to happen. So more of a deductive thinking, more of a kind of something that can be grasped in a simple if-else loops in some sense. So that is one major trend. Another trend is then kind of how to go beyond the task automation, how to sequence and kind of orchestrate the automation in a way that they allow an end-to-end processing. And it's quite evident if you look on the academia or in research, kind of you can see where this comes from. It's said that 80% of all the benefits in our, actually 80% of all the kind of work and effort spent today in the data-driven economics that we are living through is actually spent on collecting and preparing of data. And only 20% is spent on actually analyzing, visualizing, or making decisions based on the data. It's quite evident that the 80% is the scope, the structuring of the data of the next phase of the automation. And the end-to-end processing, that is also quite easy to understand if you try to kind of slice the picture from the point of view that where is the business value. So business value lies typically 70-60% of the value is in the kind of core business core processes where you need to be able to differentiate in the market. And attacking those processes, autonomous execution of those processes from the automation program point of view only makes sense. Instead of being in the long tail of task-only level of automations. And I think kind of to combine these two together, you need a multi-technology, kind of a scalable, flexible, on-demand platform where you can run all of the digital workers when you need them and sequence and orchestrate them. And I think we are going to talk today more about RoboShore, but this is a kind of excellent product or service on that space to offer those capabilities.
Okay, thank you, Karli. So basically moving from the straightforward rule-based automation to more extended capabilities on part of the digital workers, and also moving from task automation to more end-to-end process automation. Thank you for that. So let me turn to Tuomo with the next question here, and the topic is flexibility. Flexibility is one of the promises of digital labor. That's one of the reasons why people are attracted to the concept of digital labor. It should be more flexible than, let's say, traditional workforce models. And so in your role as continuous services head, I'm sure you have a good view over the data of our customers in relation to their consumption patterns, their volume patterns, in terms of their usage of digital workforce assets. When we think about traditional models of acquiring RPA capacity, so selling and acquiring licenses, basically, that doesn't strike me as being particularly flexible. The customer is expected to know what the demand for digital workforce is going to be even years ahead, and they're expected to commit to the cost of those needs upfront. How do you view this, and how, if I'm a customer now, can you advise me on how I could avoid this fixed financial upfront commitment and yet get rolling with deploying my digital workers at scale?
A very valid point and valid question, Mika. You are absolutely correct. And before jumping in the shoes of the customer, I would like to kind of address the topic a bit more. So when thinking about the digital workers, so kind of they're typically, the current evolution of digital workers is doing this task execution, and you could compare it to a summer employee, a summer temp, which is recruited for a few months, trained for the task, recruited for a few months, and then there's a large, let's say, amount of summer temps performing the task, and then they start their studies and are not there anymore. So it doesn't make sense that recruiting a summer temp, you're committed to the employee for 3 months, but if you recruit the digital worker, you recruit the digital worker for 12 months or even more. And when looking into the data on what are the expectations from our customers, so here we have actually 3 real cases from the consumption pattern of our customers from the last 6 months, and the one most to the left is a customer who's very heavy on the end of the year financial processing. So their need for digital workers goes from base volume of October 7-fold or more than 7-fold when the turn of the year comes, and basically when the turn of the year activities are over, they go almost to the zero. So they are very much having a need for temporary digital workers. Then in the middle, we are having an example of a migration initiative. So a customer of ours converted data from previous core systems to a new core system. And the kind of preparation phase, there's still a lot of base volume of automation runnings. And then suddenly when the migration starts, it's again 7-fold amount of capacity needed, 7-fold of amount of digital workers performing tasks tediously to perform the migration activities. And then to the right is a very typical use case. So the kind of business case for introducing automation is that there's quite often backlog of undone work. And when the automation is set into production, it then means that backlog is processed first. And then there's a quite high, let's say, increase in the volumes before the automation starts handling the cases day by day as they come. And this kind of data illustrates why committing to the maximum capacity for at least 12 months upfront is not in the kind of expectations of the customers. And this was one of the core reasons why we launched the RoboShore service.
Thank you, Tuomo. This is really eye-opening statistics that you're sharing. with us, and you mentioned RoboShore. It's been mentioned a couple of times here. Maybe this is a good time to open up for the audience. What is RoboShore exactly?
Thanks, Mika. So RoboShore is a service which was launched last summer. So, and it basically addresses three business needs. So one is that the need to have the platform from the cloud in a very flexible way, so that there's unlimited up and downward scalability based on the business need. The second business need being that it's not only the platform, also the automations are maintained. So meaning that an automation running on the RoboShore service will get fixed. If it doesn't work, it will get fixed as part of the service. So it's all included there. And the third key business requirement is the ability to choose the right technologies. So, and RoboShore is multi-technology. So customer doesn't commit to only one technology, but they can flexibly use the amount of let's say technologies, or they can flexibly use technologies for the automation purposes, and then can scale from one volume to another volume, regarding depending on which technology fits best the purpose then.
Okay, so all in all, a pretty much all-inclusive service offering for people wanting to deploy and scale automation in their organizations. How has it been received in the market?
It's been received very well, and I can show a few practical examples about benefits on what kind of two of our big customers have received there. The first example is from the banking industry, and an European bank faced almost exactly a year ago a dilemma, because then the COVID started emerging in the Europe. There was a lot of insecurity for people about their personal finances, and that resulted in the situation where there was more than tenfold amount of applications put to the bank that people want to postpone their mortgage payments, or kind of have a mortgage payment holiday, so to say. And really the only way to address this need was to introduce flexible digital workers. So then the digital workers were able to pick up to those 10 times volumes, and not only to respond to the customer need in the same time as before, but to also reduce the average transaction time by 65%. So really meeting a kind of rapid increase in the demand very fast, and making the customer experience better. The second example is from hospital industry, and this is going from previous patient system into the new patient systems, while securing that the surgeries will go on uninterrupted. And basically there were more than 20,000 surgery case requests that needed to be migrated to the new patient system, and over a time period of 1 weekend. So basically our customer then had two options: either to kind of have more than 100 people, 100 employees kind of released from patient-facing activities to work on just typing in those surgery case requests into the new system, or then to introduce flexible digital workers. And they decided to introduce flexible digital workers, and not only then being able to kind of keep the, let's say, the surgery rooms running without any breaks, but then really they had done previous exercise in lesser scale for kind of typing in these surgery case requests to new systems by humans, and when humans were doing those typing, there were 25 times more errors. So okay. It really kind of gave a lot of benefit from the quality point of view, from the business continuity point of view, and really from also the cost saving point of view for this hospital.
Okay, thank you for sharing those. I could see why deploying hundreds of people against this kind of a task might not even be possible from a cost and availability perspective, especially during times when people in these organizations have more important things to do, as we all know.
Exactly.
So let's shift focus to speed and time to market, Karli, and this one is for you. So one of the, again, great promises of RPA is incredible time to value. You're realizing solutions and automations much faster than is even possible with, let's say, traditional IT approaches and other conventional approaches. Seems to me, however, that very few companies have actually been able to leverage this aspect of RPA to really gain competitive advantage. And I'm kind of struggling to understand why that is. What is stopping companies from leveraging this more effectively? Maybe we could see the pandemic that we're in the middle of still as a kind of a trigger towards maybe realizing that opportunity. What's your view on this?
Very good points there, and kind of it's kind of very much true that promise has always been there, and we have all seen these kind of studies, and it's been all over the media that digitalization and automation, it's gaining speed now over the pandemic. But if we add to that insight our viewpoints, we have really seen kind of two things to happen here. Number one is those organizations that has been thinking about taking digital workers into their kind of organization and automating with RPA has made the decision to rapidly introduce this capability. On the other hand, those organizations who has been doing this for quite some time, they have been realizing the potential into actually introducing the agility, the resilience in their processes, as well as kind of the moving towards the core that I mentioned earlier. So those processes that really mean something to the business and keeps them alive. On the other hand, obviously, then kind of the pandemic has put the priorities in that kind of reshape the priorities in a way that we also see in very speedy executions, because the development has always been easy, quick and fast. It's all the governance and all the kind of IT accesses whatsoever that's making the processes long lasting. And in this case, when you have to priorities straight, you need to have something onboarded, then you have the whole organization working with you. And if we have a couple look on the kind of couple of use cases here, so this is very mature RPA organization, airliner, working kind of obviously the core being managing the fleet, managing the kind of travels, but suddenly COVID put everything on hold, and suddenly your core became to manage your cash flows and cash balance. And they introduced automation into the travel booking refunds process, basically 2 weeks of implementation development, 2 weeks of deployment, and they were able to reduce the lead time per refund, average lead time from 5 months to 5 weeks. Obviously, there's manual tasking involved and third parties involved in the process still, so it's not as straightforward as kind of 1 day or 2 hours. But the 80% of reduction is quite significant there. And this is obviously only doable with the scalable nature of the digital workers. So we were able to produce more than 40 times more refunds per day than kind of in the manual process. Another case there, this is an example, a wonderful example. So it's a net new process, didn't exist before. The organization didn't use RPA before. And they were given, this is a governmental institution, but they were given the responsibility to set up the short-term layoff application process for a kind of a country here in the Nordics. And they basically kind of created the process, made the decision to take RPA as part of the process, defined the process, automated the process, and deployed the process in 3 weeks or so. It's a matter of a couple of weeks from decision, zero capability upfront. And now they process or have processed by this date almost 100,000 applications for the kind of short-term layoffs. So obviously it's a huge benefit for the society as well here that has been introduced.
That's very, very impressive. Thank you for sharing those. Karli, it seems like in these cases, this rapid automation capability almost became mission critical for these organizations. And the trigger again being the global pandemic crisis. Maybe these organizations will find a way then in the future to utilize this capability to really gain competitive advantage as well. Tuomo, I mean, we've heard about several use cases now, both in terms of optimizing the capacity side of things, as well as this accelerating time to market aspect. How would you now kind of summarize the role of RoboSure, as well as sort of kind of broadly these on-demand models in making these kinds of developments possible?
A good question, and in my viewpoint, the on-demand models have been foundational for this. So having the on-demand possibility has really unlocked these rapid opportunities and kind of the opportunities where you need to scale up or scale down then after the volume peak very, very fast. And our approach to this on-demand model is RoboShow, and we launched it last summer, and since last summer it has been exceptionally well received. Majority of the customers entering our service today are using the RoboShow model.
Okay, so Karli, let's turn back to you and turn our views to the future. So you talked about the evolution of the digital worker. How is this train going to move forward? Are we finally going to see new skills being embedded in the digital workers, or are customers having to continue to deal with isolated stacks of technology and tools and try to make sense of it, and in order to realize the intelligent automation vision?
That's a very good question here again. I'm kind of there's probably many viewpoints to this topic, and I think that your latter question, which is about that how to cope with all the kind of technologies. So see, these RPA vendors and Blue Prism, for example, is kind of becoming, in some sense, the business operating system. So they are allowing you to consume all the digital workers from under the same kind of a service or same vendor tools, and then service providers obviously offering the services on top. But I would say that kind of the key insight to understand about this evolution and what is going on today is that this 2.0 evolution, which has the interpreter, analyst, communicator, digital assist or assistant, it is all built around the task executor, so the RPA robot. So that is the glue that basically the task executor consults these new digital workers within a process, and thus allowing more complex use cases and more end-to-end processes to flow through. So I think the trick really here is to consider these digital workers as a team that together perform those tasks or processes as well. And when you introduce this 2.0 digital workers, it's kind of the logic also a bit different, that in the task execution RPA, the whole point was to automate away the tedious and mundane tasks from the employees. Now in this second evolution, it's more about coexistence, supporting each other and speeding up the processes, being there 24/7. But then there's this human in the loop element that is crucial for success. So these models like Blue Prism, Decipher, or Service Assist, they are built around the co-creation, co-development of the data models and whatever the wisdom is there in between the robot and the human. So the interfaces where we meet the digital workers is increasing in our labors as of today. Obviously, we are seeing that the convergence is towards the autonomous business, and somewhere in the far end, that means that the humans are not involved in the processes, but that is quite kind of a long time away still today. So focusing for today, seeing increase of new capabilities available, but also you need a bit new ways to adapt this into your processes and the way you think how the humans and robots coexist in your organization.
Okay, so what you're saying is basically the next stage is about introducing these new specialized digital workers that we're going to be making to work together as a team. Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen, for sharing your insights. That's all we have time for today. Very interesting use cases. Thank you for sharing those. And thank you for our audience for joining in today. And obviously thank you to Blue Prism organizers for making this event possible once again. I hope you have gained some food for thought for your automation thinking. And please, if you'd like to join us in our virtual room for further discussion, we'll be available. And you can also send us a one-to-one meeting request if you'd like. More information available on our website, www.digitalworkforce.com. Hope you enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.